Hi guys, thanks for your patience. I had major tech glitches yesterday, so this will be my second attempt of recording a video to answer all your questions that you posted on forums. So I'll go through and I will answer all the questions that you had, and if you have more, there will be a live session on Thursday. Okay, so Alex decided he's too smart to have questions and he told us about it. What does the Court of Appeals do if the Superior and Supreme Court handle most things? Well, the Superior and Supreme Court do not handle most things. In fact, you would have to go through the Court of Appeals first before you could make it to the Georgia Supreme Court. So they only handle the appeal from the Court of Appeals, plus the Supreme Court also handles your capital punishment type cases, your death penalty cases, your murder cases, things like that. In fact, the Supreme Court of the United States only accepts about 100 to 150 cases to review out of 7,000 cases that are being requested. So that would kind of explain that a little bit. So I don't know exactly how many the Georgia Supreme Court hears, but the Georgia Supreme Court has their own website and it shows you the actual cases that have made it to the Supreme Court for this year. And it even does a review of what the court says. And I'll post that on the blog in case any of you are interested. The one that I did open and look at was a death penalty case. Someone was appealing her death penalty case sentencing. What exactly does the jury do? So the jury is your civic duty. You can be called for jury duty at any time, which you were supposed to have read about in your reading yesterday. And the jury basically sits and listens to opening statements. They listen to the presentation of evidence. They would listen to witnesses. Then they go and they deliberate and they decide if the defendant is guilty or innocent. Once they have decided that, if they decide that they are guilty, then the judge then determines the sentencing. What is the job of a court witness? So any person that witnesses a crime or an accident or something like that can be subpoenaed to court. That means you are ordered by the court to appear. So you have to show up, you have to take the oath saying that you will tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, and you have to give a description of what you saw. They'll ask questions. So if you are subpoenaed to court as a witness, then you have to attend and you have to give your eyewitness account of what happened. Can a civil law become a criminal law? No. So civil cases are when you sue someone for wrongdoing. Meaning, for example, if you run over your neighbor's fence, it is not a crime to run over your neighbor's fence on accident. However, it might be your responsibility to pay for it and you might have to go to civil court. There was a famous civil lawsuit about McDonald's being sued for $1 million for serving hot coffee. So the lady got her cup of coffee from the drive-thru, spilt the coffee on her lap, and it was third-degree burns. So is serving hot coffee a crime? No, but she actually won, I believe, that there was negligence. And now if you look at your cup of coffee from McDonald's, it says the contents may be very hot. So McDonald's was determined that they did something wrong and they ended up having to pay the woman a monetary amount. So civil cases usually deal with money. They do not deal with a crime, okay? However, in some cases, a criminal can be sued by a person's family for money. So for example, O.J. Simpson was found innocent of murdering the two people. However, the two victims' families sued him for a monetary amount in a civil court for wrongful death. So he didn't have the chance, there was no danger of him going to jail during this lawsuit. There was a danger of him having to pay them money. So it went from criminal because he was found innocent. So they sued him in civil court for money. So civil court is usually money. Let's see. What does the state court do and why is it not the main court? I don't really know how to answer that. State courts do predominantly traffic violations if you looked at the video that explained that yesterday. So they basically do traffic violations. If your county does not have a state court, then the magistrate court takes care of all of them. Can some misdemeanors lead to a couple of days in jail? I think maybe it depends on what they are and what the crimes, but usually not jail time. It could be anything from probation, community service, fines, etc. like that. If it's just a misdemeanor, it might be like 24 hours in jail, but probably not major jail time. Interestingly enough, a DUI is considered a misdemeanor. So most of the time you might have to serve a day or 24, 48 hours. So that would be a misdemeanor that I think sometimes you can serve jail time for. But I don't know about others. What if someone is suing, can they both be criminal? No, if someone is suing, it is usually just civil. Can someone appeal to higher courts and the case is granted immediately, or does someone have to review the case? Okay, so every case can be reviewed for an appeal. Appeals usually take place because of a wrongdoing, usually a legal basis. Evidence was mishandled. The correct witnesses weren't badgering the witnesses. I don't know, like there's different little legal things that can happen that would make an appeal and make you win the appeal to where you could have your case reheard. Most appeals are not successful, meaning the appeals court usually upholds the lower court's decision. Only 9% of cases in 2015 that were appealed were successful. Only 10% of cases are usually appealed. So I want you to remember that all of these times that you have to hire an attorney for a court case, it can be very expensive. So when you file for an appeal, that's more and more time for the expensive. Right now, there's lots of court documentaries on Netflix that you guys could be watching that would kind of talk about some of that, and it kind of shows you how much some of the attorney's fees and things are, and that's very interesting. A lot of them are actually real. Let's see. What is a partisan and a nonpartisan election? When it says partisan, it basically means having to deal with a political party. So if a judge is elected in a partisan election, that means he's running either as a Democrat or a Republican. If it is a nonpartisan election, that means he is not affiliated with a political party at all. It has nothing to do with politics. I was curious about when your case is closed and the verdict has been given, but new evidence appears. If new evidence appears, that is a great reason to have an appeal. And for example, back in the day when they did not have forensic evidence that we could use for stuff, a lot of them of older cases like that, now that we can use forensic science to prove guilt or innocence, a lot of people who have been charged with a murder can now go back and have new evidence submitted, and some of them are actually being released from jail based upon the new science that we have that prove that he or she is innocent of a crime. Some of them were on death row and things like that. So that's something interesting that you guys could look up if you're interested in doing so. But that is definitely something that's happening now. As science improves, you can now have a better chance of proving your guilt or innocent with that. So I'm watching a show, and the dead husband of 4 years came back from the dead, but with amnesia and doesn't remember anything. Are all the husband and wife still married? I tried to look that up, Dorothy, and I can't find a real answer. If you want to divorce a spouse and they disappear, you can still divorce your spouse. You have to put some sort of ad in a paper, and it has to run for a certain amount of time. You can't decide on custody or things like that, but you can legally get divorced. And I don't know about if they reappear. If a kid under 18 committed a crime that was serious enough, would they still be charged in a juvenile court? No. So y'all are going to be learning about that this week when we talk about juvenile justice. There are certain crimes that the juveniles will be tried as an adult, and it will go as a felony, and it will go through the Superior Court. In fact, the laws have changed over time. Juveniles used to be able to be sentenced to death. Juveniles used to be able to serve life in prison. Juveniles used to be able to serve life in prison without parole. So some of those things have changed now. What happens if a county doesn't have a state court? If it doesn't have a state court, it goes to the magistrate court. If I stole roughly 40 pounds of Elmo memorabilia, would my parents ground me? I don't know if your parents would ground you, but depending on the value of the 40 pounds of Elmo memorabilia that you stole, your misdemeanor for shoplifting could turn into a felony. So you might want to be careful when you do that. How often do Georgia cases move to the U.S. Supreme Court? I think the stat that I looked up was that out of 7,000 cases that were asked to be reviewed, only 150 cases were reviewed by the Supreme Court. And I believe you can go to the U.S. Supreme Court site and see what cases are being reviewed. I don't know how many specifically came from the state of Georgia. How long can one case go on for? The O.J. Simpson trial went on for months and months and months. And if you are an unlucky witness or a person who gets called for jury duty in a case like that, that is months of your life that you might be spending sequestered, which means you cannot have contact with anyone because the case is such high profile and there's so much media revolving around it that those jurors had to be sequestered in one floor of a hotel room without contact with their families, without being able to go home, supervised contact with their families, supervised phone calls. They couldn't watch anything on the news. They had only pre-recorded things that they could watch to make sure that they were not given any information about the case. So that would not really be a very good time. So Phoenix asks, is there any way to memorize the courts? Watching that video that I posted on Monday, which talks about the paperwork court, the juvenile court, and then reviewing that, the Venn diagram that I posted on Tuesday. Vikram wants to know, who am I again? Vikram, you are a young man who likes to take belongings when people aren't looking. Why would anybody want me to be their attorney? Lance, I'm pretty sure no one would, unless they just are dying to go to jail. Why are there so many different courts? I guess because there's so many different types of cases, and you can think about an attorney or a judge specializes in a specific area. It would be impossible to know every single letter of the law and all the legal things. So you might specialize in one jurisdiction or one area, so you know that law very well, and that would just be in charge of handling the court, handling those cases. Does the judge make the most money? Yes, I believe the judges probably make more money than anyone, but attorneys do okay for themselves as well. Okay, I think that was everything. So, shout outs. Here I have a shout outs for period 1. I wonder, has Omi gotten any taller? Period number 2. All I have to say is Caleb Bird, giving him a special shout out, is killing the digital learning game. I am so impressed with you. You are like on it, Johnny on the spot. Brooks, I'm wondering, would you still be the only one that would let me back into the classroom when I locked myself out saving an innocent spider? The only one. Luke Flynn, how long is your hair now? And do you still tuck it behind your ears? Liam Long, would you still be mad if I gave you the piece of paper with the holes punched in it, like half on, half off? Do you even have to hole punch anymore? Or do you not even have to worry about it because no one punches the holes in the paper? Anyway, just curious. I miss you guys. I will be setting up online sessions for Thursday to review. I heard you loud and clear. You would like a Quizlet for the courts. I will work on that. I hope you enjoy the lesson today, watching some video clips from some court cases. And I think that is all. You know how to find me if you need me.